Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Triple Crown Wargaming, where we're going through yet another almanac and a day of what I can only describe as some of the biggest reveals we've seen so far in terms of modelling wise. And you are joined once again by me, Max the Chieftain Hurley. And today is going to be a bit of a weird one. There was an almanac released today, showcasing, as you can see on your screens now, old almanac designer roundtable on painting the miniatures. But if I'm honest, this video is probably going to take this almanac's probably going to take a back seat in this video we're going to do today, as there was a absolute frenzy on Facebook earlier on today regarding base sizes for all but 3 of the armies that are going to be in the Ogre, and that includes PDF factions. But we are briefly going to shoot through the almanac right now because we might as well go through it. It's some news from the designers. So overall, almanac designer roundtable. So this is basically going through how they plan to paint the armies in the Old Order, specifically the Bretonnians and the Tomb Kings. Now, what has changed either between my fantasy ending and the Old Order project starting, and how this affects your approach to painting? Be bright enough to catch your eye in a big photo is the main gist there. And they did realistically. The Tomb Kings, they've always been quite striking with a lot of gold and a lot of bright bone or a bleached bone effect. Shout out to the old paint name. And they managed to make them be more striking with the new stuff as well, including the new Necrolith Bone Dragon. And they go on to talk about that and how the regal effects of the goldness looked on the models. And then they move into the next question they go into as well is, are you trying to match old styles? Are you trying to push it ahead as far as you can? We don't necessarily want to limit ourselves. We can treat something like a damsel as a statement of intent, a little bit like the designers did with the packed layout of the Knights of the Round Foot. If we then revisit Bretonnian in the future, we've laid this much stronger foundation for future work. And then the Kingdom of Bretonnia now all sports a uniform paint scheme. Can you break down your approach to painting this faction? So they say the Foot Knights are a good place to start. We spent a lot of time thinking about how we can take something that exists, the idea of Bretonnian Knights, and modernise the painting in a way that doesn't make them sit outside the existing range. Nearly the whole army has been repainted in the colours of Duke Gastil, the Red Hand of Brion, by a combination of the heavy metal team and army painting teams. So it really was a brand new direction. So this is going into the fact that in the past, a lot of Bretonnian armies, they have had each knight has had its own heraldry, its own paint scheme, which really made Bretonnian armies stand out. Case in point would be the Duke's own Bretonnian army, in which each individual knight has a different paint scheme to the others, which really made the army stand out on the battlefield. Don't get me wrong, I do like uniformity in a paint scheme. I do like everyone looking pretty much the same as the next guy. It makes for a sort of striking army to my own eye. But they were saying about the mismatch of colours from a Bretonnian army that just made them even more stand out. So the direction they went with in terms of painting the Bretonnians and making them all uniform under the same heraldry as the Duke Gastil, was it? Yeah, Duke Gastil, the Red Hand. Seems like an odd direction, but as I just said, I do like uniformity, so I don't mind the uniformity in it, but I do miss the old mismatch of colours. As you can see on the screen as well, they've given you an actual breakdown of the paints they used to paint Duke Gastil on his Pegasus. And all the paints here, from the base coat to the shades, the highlights and the spot highlights, all going through from his red cloth and armour to his black cloth and armour, his yellow cloth, the metals and the brown leather. They didn't give you the direct paint scheme for the Pegasus itself, but you might just be able to work that out a little bit by sort of doing a muted white colour as it was, or an off-white colour, sorry. And so they still going on to talk about the knights having mismatching heraldry across the favours, trinkets, weapons, and helmets. They've decided to try and keep that in as much as they can, but it's not going to be as prevalent as it is. And they also going to say, I think the new scheme makes questing knights and growl knights seem perhaps even more important, as they will, by the looks of it in this picture, we can see they're all going to keep their own heraldry and colours. So at least that element's going to stay in. It looks like the basic knights errant and knights of the realm are going to be under the heraldry of the Duke they're going to be riding alongside with, whereas the questing knights and ground knights are usually in the fluff their own thing, especially the ground knights, as they can be either hermit knights or they guard the Grail chapels that are dotted around Bretonnia. Interesting. And then they go on to talk about how they painted Elise Duchard, the special character we've seen from the Bretonnian range, the new lovely Elise Duchard, mounted upon her unicorn. Now, I can only imagine the unicorn has to look different to the white dress because the horse's skin does not look like white cloth. It's still part of the same army as men at arms, so we have to ground this magical creature a little, which are achieved in the dirt on the forelocks and the lower limbs. And also with speckling and glazing a skin tone onto the muzzle to bring a little bit of realism. So they have managed to do that absolutely astoundingly on the muzzle of the horse and the forelocks and the hind legs of the horse of the unicorn in itself. And they've also managed to achieve the fact that they've made the skin of the unicorn look different to the white dress of Elise Duchard. And I think we've all agreed in the past that this is an absolutely spectacular model and a lovely paint job as well. I don't envy the Duke at all for trying to paint this model up himself if he ever tries to attempt it. And then how do you tackle the Necrolith? How do you tackle the Tomb Kings of Kemri and the Necrolith Bone Dragon? The primary material of the Necrolith Bone Dragon is perhaps unsurprisingly bone. So there's only a narrow span you can work with. It's a challenge to keep that interesting. We did a lot of research in bones. We didn't want just to figure out one recipe and stick to it for everything. We spent a lot of time looking at the carcasses and bones situated in different environments and observed how bones weathered through the ages. It must have been a bit of a grim task going for all that and looking just at pictures of bones all day. And how might the bones of the recent death look like versus sand polished bones? And so we extend this thing to how the model is based. Not only is the old style standard sandy base, but some of those bones are painted to reflect this. There's dirt and weathering that conveys the environment it's in. So as we can see here, the middle of the bone on this wing here is pretty much sort of polished off as sun bleached, whereas the bones that are touching the ground themselves, namely on the feet on the front and the back and the claws of the wing, they're all quite dirty and as if they've been dragged through the sand in itself. And then they go on to talk about how they painted the howdah, the absolutely spectacular howdah, for the Lich Priest that is riding atop Necrolith Bone Dragon. And they also talk about the elements that we dug into is the way the flesh is painted on the Tomb Kings. Though the primary image of the faction is sun bleached skeletons, there's actually a lot of desiccated flesh on display in the old art of the Tomb Kings and Lich Priests. There's also a precedent in the range already, as the Casket of Souls has quite realistic looking fleshy tone on it. And they go on to say it's another case of thinking where in the old world these creatures are situated, what's happened to them since they die. Skin gets leathery as it ages, and paler skin gets quite translucent. These elements need to be transferred into the afterlife. The striking green elements as well. So they did talk about like sort of in this Tomb King here, you've got the glowing green eyes as well, as if it's been powered by a spirit of the dead, which in fact it is, but it hasn't been translated over to Almanac in the middle as he has no eyes. So. Bit sad. I imagine you could try and do a little pinprick of green in the middle of his sockets, but it might be a little bit hard depending on how big those eye sockets are. And that pretty much rounds out this painting article. This will be the second to last one before the pre-order day, which is the coming Saturday of the 6th of January. And the last Almanac in the series looks like it's going to be what they've called Round Table the Rest. So I don't know what that's really going to mean anything. There were all sorts of interesting tangents that don't fit neatly into those three subjects. Tomorrow we're presenting a feast of informative morsels to tide you over until Saturday, when you can pre-order Warhammer The Old World. Now, this might be a full-fledged article of what I'm going to discuss now, which is the surprising, to say the least, semi-reveal of base sizes of 13 of the factions. Absolute madness. It started off as a comment on a Facebook post in the official Warhammer The Old World Facebook page that was talking about, I think it was like yesterday's or the day before's Almanac article. But then someone asked, "Oh, what's this base size going to be?" And just randomly, one of the team that said, "Yeah, it's going to be this base size." And so that slowly gained traction until the article absolutely blew up and just became an absolute frenzy of people asking questions and questions and questions until it became quite a chore to find the actual list of every sort of every base size that each army they've decided to disclose has. So what we're going to do now is that I've managed to grab some screenshots from some of the Facebook groups I'm in and present them to you now. I'm going to go over what's changed and what hasn't, and some of the surprising changes that have come about from it. So we're going to start off with Beastmen, and the big surprise here is that Gauls are staying on 25mm squares, but Bester Gauls are going up to 30s. Now, the fact that Ungors, which are not on this list, but we all know they're going to go up to 25s because everything else 20 is going up to 25. I think some of us did think that Gauls was going to go up to 30 as well, because of the increase in base size as it is. But surprisingly, the Gauls are staying on 25, so they're going to stay the same size as an Ungor, which then makes the Bestigors a very large unit, a very large footprint of a unit, if I'm going to say that as well. As someone who's used to running their Bestigor in a horde formation, I don't think it's going to be particularly viable anymore, even if hordes are even still a thing, to run your Bestigors that way, as it'll just take up far too much room on the battlefield. Also brings into a point of the characters of Beastmen, Lords, and Shamans, and these can go on either 25s or 30s. Now, I think this might be, and I will correct myself across this video if it's incorrect, this might be the only case of interchangeable base size for a model, which does make for a very interesting, I'm going to say the word because it is interesting, and complicated task of figuring out how to sort out if you want to permanently put your models onto 30s or 25s, or try and figure out a way of putting your characters on a interchangeable base. So taking like a 25mm base and finding a sort of base slotter or a base extender, and then magnetize it in such a way that you can interchange between when you want to. And that also brings up the fact that can you change your base sizes during the game so you can join other units? I have no idea. They have not specified this. They've not said anything about it. They've just said the Beastmen, Lords, and Shamans are going to be on 25s or 30s. So it does sound like it's going to be your choice. All Minotaurs are going up to 50, so they're going up by 10mm. That's a big change. Makes Minotaurs an even larger presence on the battlefield, seeing the muscles upon muscles upon muscles. It's just crazy, if I'm honest, that the fact they're going to be getting that size of a base. Yeah, there's not much to say about it. They're going to be absolutely huge on the battlefield. And again, it just feels like the Beastman army is going to be taking up a lot of room on the battlefield. Because all these base sizes you see on here right now, they are crazy sized. The Gorgon and the Cygor are going up by 60 to 100. So their width of their base is going to be going up to what the end time Bloodthirsters were on. The Insensate Rage, the Wrathacorn, and the... Ooh, what's the other one called? Unfettered Fury. They're going to be up to those size bases, those Bloodthirsters, which again is an increase, and it's going to mean they're going to take a lot more real estate on the battlefield. Another one, which is interesting here, is that Dragon Ogre Shaggoths, Cockatrices, and Dragon Ogres themselves are included in the Beastman list rather than the Warriors of Chaos list. Now, this makes sense as these models are in the Beast of Chaos range for Age of Sigmar. But now this pretty much confirms that these models are going to be part of the Beastman range, Beastman army, rather than Warriors of Chaos army, or they might be interchangeable, they might be in both. I'm not entirely sure, but they've put the base sizes in the Beastman list here. So, yes, that's going to be quite a staggering change. Gives the Beastmen a lot more monstrous options, and probably some better monstrous options as well. The Jabber's Life is going up by 60 by 100, same as the Gorgon and Cygor, because those all on the same base. All Beastmen chariots are going to stay as 50 by 100s. Seems all right because the Beastmen chariots were pretty slender, so they did fit on the regular chariot bases quite nicely. It makes me wonder, they haven't mentioned anything about Razorgore chariots, so I don't know if they're... So all Beastmen chariots, so they'll be Razorgore chariots as well. Whether Razorgore chariots are still a thing, and if they're still character mounts for your characters. Chaos Warhounds, they're staying on 25 by 50s. No surprise there. They're just going to be War Beasts, a cavalry type, as we found out yesterday. Razorgore Hers, now this is a big one for me, is that they've gone up, not in width-wise, they've gone up in length-wise, to 50 by 75s. Absolutely crazy in terms of size right there. Puts them the same sort of size as monstrous cavalry in the current game, such as Skull Crushers and the like. Now, if you know me, you know I own 18 Razorgore, and they are all on relatively scenic bases, so this entire change is going to be an absolute pain for me. It might give me a chance to try and readjust the legs, because some of them have unfortunately bent in storage, so give me a chance to try and sort that out, but it might be a bit of a nightmare trying to get him off the bases to begin with. And in Centaurs, being the pseudo heavy cav, I suppose, of Beastmen, they go up to 30 by 60s. So not really a surprise there again. That's Beastmen. This is probably one of the better ones. This is probably one of the big ones for me, because I was wondering what Beastmen are going to be like. But yeah, there it is. So on to the next one, which is going to be the Kingdom of Bretonnian. And apologies for the difference in colors of screenshots. These were taken from a couple of different phones from my friends. So we're going to start off with the characters on foot, as the Lord of Bretonnia and the Handmaid as the Lady are going to be on 25s on 25mm squares. not a surprise there. They were on 20s before, so they're going to 25s if they're on foot, which is pretty standard, I suppose. The next one is a new character, Sergeant Arms. So it's going to be like your peasant character on foot. Again, no surprise, going to be 25 by 25. Knights are on foot. Again, no surprise, 25 by 25. We've already seen those. Squires, which confirms these guys are going to be a foot unit, are going to be 25 by 25. So again, no surprise. Same with men at arms, peasant bowmen, and battle pilgrims. The Grail Reliquary is going to be on a 50 by 75, which is nice. It means that the Grail Reliquary can fit into your battle pilgrim units. All the Knights of Bretonnia, the Knights Errant, the Knights of the Realm, the Questing Knights and Ground Knights, they're all on 30 by 60s. We already knew this, has been confirmed already. Pegasus Knights are on 40 by 60s. I believe that had already been confirmed as well. Mounted Yeomen, they're staying on 25 by 50s. They're like one of three, I suppose. Fast cav units from 8th edition are staying on 25 by 50s, and we'll get to that in a second as we go on. The Hippogriff is staying on 50 by 50. The Field Trebuchet is actually getting a base now. It's going to be a 60 by 100. So same size base as a Gorgon, Cygor, Javis Life, or as I said, the Enticed Bloodthirsters. The Crewmen of the Trebuchet are going to be 25 by 25s. Again, no surprise there. They are the just on foot peasants, so it doesn't make any difference there. Onto the mounts of Bretonnia. The Bretonnian Warhorse is going to go to 30 by 60. So that's your heavy cav horse. You got your regular warhorse, which is going to be the mounted yeoman's mounts, and possibly the sergeant at arms if you can go on a warhorse. That'd be quite a cool little change or cool little addition to him. Barded Pegasus, which is going to be the old Pegasus Knights, is on a 40 by 60. Very cool to see they've called it a Barded Pegasus rather than a Pegasus, because that was one of the big things for the Pegasus Knights. They didn't have Barded steeds, so by the sounds of it, they're now going to be Barded. The Royal Pegasus, which is going to be a 50 by 50, same as the Hippogriff, and the Unicorn is going to be a 40 by 60. So we already knew Elise Duchard was on a bigger base than most of her other units in their army, but this just confirms what the base size is going to be. For this one, I don't think there's many surprises throughout it. There's not a lot to go from there. Probably some of the bigger ones, I suppose, is the Mounted Yeoman. But overall, I don't think we're all shocked by what's going on there. Into the Dwarves, and this is pretty much all as you would think it would be. So I'll just round out very quickly. Some of the Dwarf Lords, Dwarf Runesmiths, Slayers of Legend, as they're now being called, Dwarf Engineers, Dwarf Warriors, Longbeards, Quarrels and Thunderers, Rangers, Hammerers, Ironbreakers, Iron Drakes, Miners, Slayers, are all going to be on 25 mil squares. No real surprise there. They're all on foot. They're all on 20, so they're going to go up to 25 mil squares. I think we all assume that, and if you're a Dwarf player, I'd imagine you already started to sort that out for yourself. Now, the Dwarf Lord Shield Bearers, they're on a 50 by 50, which means that they're going to be taking up a bit of real estate inside a unit, but it does mean they can fit in a unit. So, good news there. On to the next ones. We've got Gyrocopters and Gyrobombers. They're on 50 by 50s. I think they're going up a base size. I think they're currently on 40s, but going up to 50 by 50s means they're going to take up a little bit more room. Cannons and organ guns, they've now got confirmed base sizes. You have to put them on a 50 by 50 millimeter base. Flame cannons are on 50 by 75s. Makes sense, they're a bit longer. One of the surprising ones from this one was the Grudge Thrower. I think a lot of people assumed it was going to be on a 50 by 50. But it's actually on a 50 by 75. So on a monstrous cav size base. So interesting. I said the word again. I had to try and stop myself there, but I was already too far gone. They're going to be one of the bigger artillery pieces, but it might make more room to sort of base your model to make it look nice. On to the next one, we have the Empire. So we have Commanders of the Empire, and again, I don't think this is going to be a lot of surprises here. Commanders of the Empire, and if there are any surprises, I will go back to them. Commanders of the Empire, Empire Wizards, Witch Hunters, Warrior Priests of Sigmar, Priests of Ulrich, Engineers, Empire State Troops, State Missile Troops, Free Company Militia, Great Swords, Flagellants. They're all on 25 mil squares. Now, a surprise there is the introduction of a new character, the Priest of Ulrich, which I can only imagine would sort of go in the same vein as a Warrior Priest of Sigmar in terms of buffing your troops with prayers to Ulrich. We don't know what it's going to do. This is the first. I think it's the first we've actually heard of it. So quite cool to see it there. I know the Duke will be very happy as he has a Binnenheim army with a bunch of Priests of Auric in it. So he will more likely be using those as Priests of Auric rather than using them as Warrior Priests of Sigmar. Two big ones here, Pistoliers and Outriders. They're on 30 by 60s. Now, being fast cav in 8th edition, I would have imagined they would have stayed on 25 by 50s. But they're actually going on 30 by 60s, the same sort of base size as what I'm imagining is going to be a lot heavy cav in game. Wondering how that's going to play out. I wonder what the decision behind that design was. But again, it means there's a lot more room on that base for the models to rank up and to base your models as you see fit. Again, Empire Knights and Inner Circle Knights, they're 30 by 60s. They're heavy cavalry, not a big surprise there. The Demigryph is a 50 by 75. I believe that's the same base size as it is right now, so not a change. The Warlord of Sigmar and the Empire Steam Tank are both going up to 60 by 100. So again, they're going up to the same sort of size as what I can imagine a lot of chariots are going to be. Weird that the Warlord of Sigmar is in this list because I believe, from my lore knowledge, the Warlord of Sigmar wasn't built until after Magnus the Pious had become Emperor. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but that is a bit of a lore change right there. Griffins, they're going to be on 60 by 100s. I believe that is a change, to be honest. That's a big change. I think they used to be on 50mm bases. So 60 by 100s, quite a cool one there. Great Cannons and Mortars are 50 by 75s, as are the Hellblasters and Hellstorm Rocket Batteries. So they're bigger artillery pieces than the Dwarven ones, because back in the day the Dwarf cannons used to be called just cannons, and the Empire cannons used to be called Great Cannons. So cool to see they're going up to a large base size than the Dwarven equivalents. More weird the fact, again, the Hellblaster Volley Gun and Hellstorm Rocket Batteries are in the army at all. I thought these, again, were a later invention after the time of the Old World, sort of going more towards the time of the End Times. Wonder what the fluff decision behind that was and why I decided to keep them. They are very cool models, so I'm not sort of unhappy that they're going to be in the game, but cool to see it nonetheless. On to the next faction, which is going to be High Elves. A very small selection here because everything is quite condensed. High Elf Standard Infantry on 25, so no surprise. The Dragons are on 60 by 100. So I know for a fact that the Lawmaster is going to be a bit upset because he has already rebased one of his dragons onto a regular chariot-sized base. So he's going to have to change that up a little bit to get that fitted in there. High Elf Cavalry and all High Elf Cavalry on 30 by 60s, which should include Illyrian Reavers. Again, a fast cav unit that's going up to the heavy cav sized base. Same sort of thing. I wonder what the design decision was behind that, but we'll have to see as we go on. All High Elf Ground Chariots are 50 by 100s. It's actually that's your Tyrannox and your White Lion Chariots of Trace. The Sky Cutter is going up to a 60 by 100. Now that's going to be a pain because the Sky Cutter was mounted upon two flying stands that really would be glued into the base previously. And I can only imagine getting those flying stems out of the base are going to be absolute pain in the backside. The Griffin is on a 50mm base, which is different from the Empire Griffin, which is on a 60 by 100. I don't know why that is. The Griffins, I'd imagine the Griffins would be the same size across the races, unless the Empire in fluff breed them to be bigger and stronger, and the ones with the older, the High Elves, they are more life and quick. Quite cool there. Phoenixes or Phoenixes, as it's been misspelt in this screenshot here, are staying on 50 by 100. Nice to know. Again, that's a flying stand, so nice to know that they're going to have to be sort of torn out the base. The Grey Eagle stays on a 50, and the Eagle Claw bolt throwers are on 50s as well as an artillery piece. I think that was I think that was going to be assumed because they're quite a small artillery piece. So the sort of interesting and big ones from here are Illyrian Reavers being on 30 by 60. The Skycutter Chariot being a bit more of a nuisance rather than anything else by going up a base size, and that's about it. Oh, and Dragons go up to 60 by 100s. That's a cool one as well. The next one is Lizardmen. Now, this is the first of the PDF factions, and they've actually decided to give us some base sizes for these. So, all Saurus are going to be on 30s, all Skinks are going to be on 25s, and Slann are going to be on 50s. quite a divisive decision there, as if the Slans are on a 50 and the Saurus on 30s, it means that Slans can't fit in perfectly into a Temple Guard unit, which makes you wonder how the Slan are actually play in-game and being able to join and being protected by the Temple Guard, as they are the prime protectors of those models. I don't know if I agree with that one. I think that the Slan should have gone up to a 60mm base, if that was going to be the case, but that would have been an absolutely huge base size. But we'll have to see how that plays out in game. Cold ones are 30x60s. That's heavy cav, so no sprites there. All aerial cav are staying on 40s. Crossguard are staying on 40s, which same as the Slan means they can no longer join Skeet units perfectly. So you can't have Scrox units anymore. I don't know if that's still going to be a thing. It's not as big as a Slan joining Temple Guard, but it's still quite annoying to say the least. Jungle Swarms are staying on 40s. Stegodons and Bastiladons are 60s by 100. Okay, I know the Stegodon, and they did stretch out the room on the old chariot bases. To get 60 by 100 is a bit more room, but it's not the way I would have gone with it. I would have probably made them try to make it a bit longer rather than wider. Salamanders and Razordons, they're going on our base side. I think they're going up from 40s to 50 by 75. So that's a massive jump. So unless the 75mm square, or actually just considering this now, the extra 75mm on the back might be room for the handlers that you probably have to glue on to the Salamanders and Razordons, and makes me think that if Razor got the same, it might mean they have to have some Ungor handlers as well, maybe. Who knows? Just a little thought that shot across my mind as I was reading that. So that could be why they've given it a 50 by 75 to give you more room to put a skink on the back of the actual base itself. Which would make sense, seeing as they did release the new Salamander model, which is huge. So I could see that happening. And the Carnosaurs and the Troglodons are staying on 50s by 100. I don't know why they've not gone up to the same base size as Stegodons and Bastiladons. A weird one there, but seeing as there's a PDF faction, I don't think is all that concerning. The big ones for this one is obviously the Slant and the Crocscore. They can't fit in the units they were used to going as nicely as they did. So we'll have to see how that plays out in game. This one, we're looking at the Ogres. So standard Ogres are down on 40s. Nobblers are being honest going up to 25s, as we thought they might do. Ogre Lords, that'd be Tyrants and your Bruisers, are going to stand on 40s. Butchers are on 40s, but 50 by 100s with their Cauldron. So that's a new option. So the old Scrag model, Scrag the Slaughter model, obviously had the Cauldron being dragged behind him. So that makes me think they're going to use him as a generic character and use him as like an upgrade for your Butchers and your Slaughter Masters. So you get Cauldron the Great Maw behind you, dragging it along in game. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and if they give it any rules and what kind of rules it would get. Hunters are on 50s. I think they were on 50s anyway because they joined Sabertusk Pact, which were on 25 by 100, or 25 by 50, sorry. So it makes me think that the Sabertusk are going to stay on 25 by 50s, as they aren't specified in this list. Man-Eaters are on 40s, Yetis are on 40s, and Gorges are on 50s, all the same as they are right now. Big one with this one is the addition of the Cauldron Butcher, which could play a different way into the game in itself. Next up is, this is going to be a double picture right now, is going to be the Orcs and Goblins, as they do have a massive list of everything right now. So, confirmed here is Black Orc bosses, Orc Shamans. I'm pretty much going to say here that all Orc infantry units, so if they're an Orc race, are on 30mm bases. Cool. It just goes to show the fact that maybe they will rank up a bit better, because if you've played Orcs and Goblins, you know that Savage Orcs and Black Orcs just don't rank up at all. I have some regular Orcs, but I've not tried to base them up yet. And all Goblins are going to be on 25mm squares, as we might have thought there, as with the Nasty Skulkers, Night Goblins. And saying that going from there. The Squig Herd is going to be on 25s, no change there. Troll Mobs are on 40mm bases. Orc Boar Boys being heavy cavalry, they're on 30 by 60s. Goblin Spider Rider Mobs and Wolf Rider Mobs, sorry, that's two more additions to the 25 fast cav bases. They're staying on 25 by 50s. Squig Hoppers, they go up to 25s. Orc Boar Chariots on 50 by 100s. So the Goblin Wolf Chariots. Same there. And there's some caveats there. If two wolves Oh, sorry, there you go. 50 by 100s if it's got 2 wolves pulling, or 60 by 100s if it's got 3 wolves pulling. So a change there is deciding what upgrade you choose to give it. So again, you have to make a choice of whether to try and make it work out so you can interchange it, or if you're going to permanently make it a 2 wolf chariot or a 3 wolf chariot. The Stockling pump wagon is going to a 50 by 75. I think that's the same base size as it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while since I've seen an actual pump wagon model. Wyverns are going to 50 by 100. The old school metal Wyvern was that, but the Aztec the Slaughterer model was a 50mm square. So quite cool to see them sort of changing around. And the Arachnarok Spider is staying on the Arachnarok base. It's not a Terrorgeist base because the Arachnarok came out first with it. It's staying on the big 100 by 150. And a Mangler Squig. The Mangler Squig is going to a 50 by 75mm square. Now, I want to mention this differently because, as we can see midway through the list as well, Fanatics are staying on 25mm round bases, but Manglers are going to a 50 by 75 square base. So I don't know what the reason was behind the Manglers changing base size to a square base, but it might mean a change in how the Mangler plays in game. It might not be a large Fanatic, it might actually be a combat unit, as the what was it called? The Great Cave Squig, I believe, from Monsters Arcana function in game. It might just be a combat monster going from there. And I believe the list continues onwards as well, as after the Manglers we got Giants. They're on 50 by 50s or 50 by 75s. I think it's based on what kind of model you have, whether it's the old school metal one or the newer plastic one. And all the artillery pieces are on 50mm squares. Apart from, it's not all of them. Goblin bolt throwers on 50mm squares. Whereas the crew are on 25s, makes sense. They're goblins. Goblin doom divers are on 50 by 75s, whereas the crew are on 25mm squares. The goblin rock lobbers are on 60 by 100s, I suppose it's supposed to say. Whereas the crews are on 25 by 25s, and orc bullies, if you decide to take any, are on 30mm squares as well as their orcs. So cool. More decisive factors there is the Mangler Squig changing from a round base to a square base. Whether or not that plays in game, we'll have to wait and see until what they do in game when the game comes out on the 6th of January. Next one is Tomb Kings of Khemri. So this is one of the release factions. It's going to be Tomb Kings of Khemri. The Monarchs of Nehekhara. I'm going to run through this very quickly. Monarchs of Nehekhara, Royal Heralds, Lich Priests, Necrotechs, Tomb Guards, Skeleton Warriors, Skeleton Archers, and a new unit called Skeleton Skirmishers are all on 25mm squares. No big change there, I think, really. They're all on 20s beforehand, so they're going to 25s makes sense. The addition of something called Skeleton Skirmishers make me think it's going to be a unit of Skeleton Archers that has a skirmish rule. I don't know. We're going to have to see what happens when the game comes out again. Ushabti, they're staying on 40 squares. Tomb Swarms are staying on 40 squares, as are Carrion. Skeleton Horsemen and Horse Archers are staying on 25mm by 50 cavalry bases. Chariots are staying on the 50 by 100s. The Necroth Bone Dragon, as we've seen, is on 100 by 150. The Khemrian War Sphinx and the Necro Sphinx are both going up to 60s by 100. A little bit wider for them, makes more room, as it makes sense, as they are quite snug on a chariot base. The Tomb Scorpion is going to a 75 by a 50mm base. So I imagine, yeah, that's just 50 by 75 the other way around. I don't know why they put it that way around, but it's quite cool, quite weird to see them do it that way. The Necrolith Colossus is standing on a 50mm square. The Screamskull Catapult is getting a base size and is going up to a 60 by 100. And this Casket of Souls is not getting a base; it's just staying as it is from the box. Then we also have the Tomb King mounts, which are skeleton steeds, are 25 by 50s, and skeleton chariots are 50 by 100s. Makes sense. Some big ones there is the addition of skeleton skirmishers, and what, as some people pointed out earlier on, is that the Hyra Titan is no longer part of this list, and by the looks of it, no longer part of the Tomb King army. Again, choices made there in terms of what, why they did that, but it's sad to see the Hyra Titan go, or this might just be an omission, and they just haven't added it to it. On to the next one then. We have the Vampire Counts, the Legacy list. So, running through this very quickly, Vampires, Necromancers, Strigoi Ghoul Kings, Khan Wraiths, Wights, Tomb Banshees, Graveguards, Skeletons, Zombies, Crypt Ghouls. They're all going up to 25mm squares. Again, no real surprise. They are on 20, so they're going up to 25s. Then we have Crypt Horrors, Bat Swarms, Vargeist, and Fellbats, and Spirit Hosts. They're all staying on 40 mil squares. Blood Knights and Black Knights, being heavy cavalry, are going up to 30 by 60. Nicely, the Blood Knights are going up to that, as they didn't. The new ones didn't really fit on a 25 by 50. Direwolves are staying on a 25 by 50. Again, that's a war beast, so no real surprise. Hex Wraiths are a big one. That's going up to a 30 by 60, the heavy cav size base. Now, I know the Duke has already displayed his concern for trying to get his Hex Wraiths off the bases and try and get on the new ones. But we'll have to see what he can do from there. Common Thrones, Mortis Engines, Corpse Carts, and Black Coaches are all staying on Chariot bases, the 50 by 100. No real surprise again. The Zombie Dragon and the Terrorgeist, they're all staying on the Arachnarok size base, the 100 by 150. The Abyssal Terror is going to 50 by 100, the Chariot size base, whereas I think in 8th edition they were on 50 mil squares. And the Vargolf is staying on the 50 mil square as well. And then going on, the Vampire Count mounts, the Skeletal Steeds, and the Nightmares are both being 30 by 60s, being the mounts for Blood Knights and Black Knights. No real surprise. Some big ones there. I think the biggest one for me is the Hex Wraiths going up to the heavy cav size base. I don't know what the decision was for that, but we'll have to see what happens in game. Into another one, which is for my own sort of sake here, is the Warriors of Chaos. Champions of Chaos, that'll be your Exalted Heroes, your Sorcerers, Chaos Lords, and all that sort of jazz. 30 mil squares. Demon Princes are staying on 50 mil squares. Sorcerers of Chaos, sorry, there you go, are 30 mil squares, as are Chaos Warriors and Chaos Chosen Warriors are 30 mil squares. Marauders are staying at 25 mil squares. I think that's a cool little thing, as Warriors are usually just a bigger, more empowered version of a Marauder. So it's quite cool to see the fact that they are going up to a bigger base size than the Marauders to be a more imposing figure. Forsaken are also going up to 30 mil squares. Chaos Ogres and Chaos Trolls are staying on 40s. Chaos Spawn are going up to 50s. Chaos Knights and something new called Chaos Chosen Knights are going to 30 by 60s. I think that's the right choice, seeing as the new Chaos Knight models don't fit on 25 by 50s ranked up at all. The Lancer too pronounced going sideways. It's quite nice to see them changing up. Interesting to see something called Chaos Chosen Knights. I am super excited to see what they're going to be like. If it's just if it's basically just a chosen on a horse, that might be contender for some of the best cavalry in the game. Next is what we've seen of the Grail Knights and the like. Chaos Chariots and Gorby's Chariots, they're changing to bigger base sizes. Cool. They were quite snug in the bases, so it's nice to see that happening. Manticores are going up to 60 by 100 as well, as are Chaos Dragons and the Chimeras. Weird to see that happen. A lot of the Chaos Dragon didn't really have a model, so hopefully we might bring out a Chaos Dragon model or bring back the old Bullrush model. And the Chimeras also going up to 60 by 100. I don't know about the Chimeras. That's a bit of a weird one. They did fit quite nicely on the 50 by 100, but we'll have to see how that looks. The Hell Cannon is going on to 100 by 150. The base it was given once it went to Finecast. And then mounts-wise, Chaos Steeds are 30 by 60s. No surprise, the heavy cav for the Chaos Knights, so going from there. And then we have Demonic Mounts are 40 by 60s and 50 by 75s. So I'd imagine the 40 by 60s, they're going to be stuff like the regular Demonic Mount, which we have come to know. Stuff like Dorgar and the Karkadrak. If you ever use one of those, we're going to go up to 40 by 60. Or coming down, to be honest, Demonic Mount. Sorry, Dorgar was on a 50. So that is a bit of a change there. They've grown sort of smaller width-wise, but grown lengthwise. And we've got the 50 by 75s for stuff like Juggernauts. Now, the keen-eyed among you may have spotted that Skull Crushers of Khorne and Hellstriders of Slaanesh aren't in this list. Now, whether or not that's because they're not in the army, I don't know. I really hope they are in the army because they are some of the nicest models in the Warriors Chaos range. They look really cool. But it might just mean that they've included that in the list of under what's come under Demonic Mounts with the 50 by 75s. I feel like that's the case. I don't think they're just going to be removed from the game entirely. I feel that's what's going to happen there. Next up, we have the Wood Elf Realms. So the Wood Elf Realms, the Wood Elf Nobles are 25 by... So I'm going to go from here very quickly. Sorry, some surprising factors there about the older Warriors of Chaos is the addition of Chosen Chaos Knights and the omission of Skull Crushers of Khorne and Hellstriders of Chaos. Hellstriders of Slaanesh, sorry. Now we're going to the Wood Elves. There's not really big surprises here. Wood Elf Nobles, Wood Elf Mages, Shadow Dancers, Waystalkers, and Wood Elf Archers, Eternal Guard, Warrior Rangers, and War Dancers and Way Watchers. They're all going up to 25 mil squares. Not really surprised. They're on 20s before, so going to 25s makes sense. Treeman Ancients are on 50 mil squares or 50 by 75s. Pretty much that just confirms you can either use the old metal ones that are on a 50 mil square or the newer plastic ones which are on the sideways chariot bases or the sideways 50 by 75s. Cool to see that you can use either one. Quite nice there. Branch Wraiths and Dryads, they're both going up to 30s. Makes sense, they're on 25 beforehand, so going up to 30 just makes a lot of sense there. And then Treekin are going up to 50 by 50 mil squares. Weird one there, unless they're bringing the old Treekin model back, or if you're going to be using like the Kurnoth Hunters from the Sylvaneth range of AOS. Bit of a weird one. I see that change right there. And a bigger change for us, to be honest, is the Glade Riders, Sister of Thorn, and the Wild Riders are all going up to the heavy cav size base of 30 by 60. Now, whether or not this means that all those cav size bases are going to be, sorry for the pause there, all those cavalry are going to be sort of in the vein of being a heavy cav. I don't know. I don't know why they changed it. They all fit quite nicely on the old 25 by 50s. There was no ranking issues at all. So why they've done that, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if I agree with it myself, but it is what it is, and we'll have to go from there. Warhawk Riders, believe they're going up to 50 by 50s. I think they're on 40s before, but they're going up to 50s now. Forest Dragons, they're going up to 60 by 100, same as the regular dragons and the High Elves. Great Eagles are 50 mil squares, going up again, and the Treemen, same as the Treeman Ancients, are staying on either the 50 mil base or the 50 by 75s. And then the Wood Elf mounts themselves are going to be on the Elven Steeds are 30 by 60s, Great Stags are 50 mil squares, Unicorns are 40 by 60, same as the Bretonnians, and the Warhawk is a 50 by 50. So no real surprises there. I think the biggest surprises for me from the list of Wood Elf bases is the changes of the cavalry units, the Glade Riders, Sister of the Thorn, and Wild Riders. I don't know what the decision was behind making these sort of larger base size. As I said, they fit quite nicely on the old sort of 25 by 50s. But the change, we'll have to see if that makes them look better or if that makes them look any worse. And that's all the ones I have screenshots for. I'm pretty sure they went through the Skaven base sizes and what they're going to be changed to, but I can't for the life of me find a screenshot for it. So if you did smash to see the post on Facebook today about the base sizes, then please let me know and put it down in the comments below if you can. But that's going to be it. You've sat with me for about 40 odd minutes at this point in time, discussing base sizes and a little bit about painting earlier on right at the beginning. But yeah, quite a huge dump of information, if I'm honest. I'm very surprised that it wasn't as an article rather than the comment section of some posts on Facebook. But we'll have to see if this is confirmed as an official guide at some point. But seeing as this was put out about, I'm going to say midday, it started coming out about midday today on the 4th of January, and it hasn't been taken down by Games Workshop, I think we're safe to assume that this is all concrete base sizes. In my opinion, I wouldn't start changing base until you actually see something official, like a guide or something like that. But this is just what it looks like it's going to be for the game in itself. So what do you think of the base size? What are your big changes? What are your big surprises? What are you happy about? What are you not happy about? Let us know in the comments below. And just so I don't take up more of your time at this point, thank you very much for listening to me ramble on for about 45 minutes. Head back to our Old World discussion playlist to see more videos about the Old World coming up to release date. If you like those, watch our 8th edition content as well that has been released alongside everything for the past 2 years. And if you enjoyed those as well, head over to TripleCrownWarGame.com, sign up to be a Knight of the Realm, and watch all of our exclusive content there. But until next time, guys, I will see you guys later.
Remember to tag your friends and like, subscribe and share. Then head over to TripleCrownWarGaming.com and become a Knight of the Realm today.
What are you doing, mate?
You alright?
Do it for Warhammer!